Hey, everybody. Welcome to the trade deadline special of the Pull Up Trade podcast, the podcast wherein Trey pulls up. I
Wow,
think
you're really pushing. You're really
I,
pushing. That was crazy.
I think my voice is worse than it was last night. Like, dude, I said the Raptors, they needed to give me a certain amount of time off, and they just didn't. I put the call in. I said, Masai, listen, man, I need a little more time. And he gave me an extra day, but I needed two. Trey, Trevon Heath, my co-host, we're here to talk basketball. Davon Mitchell has been traded to the Miami Heat for what appears to be PJ Tucker, cash, and a second-round pick. Brandon Ingram was recently traded for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a first-round pick via the Pacers, and a 2031 second-round pick from the Raptors. That is what we are currently working with. There are reports from the people with their finger on the pulse that the Raptors are quote-unquote not done. The potential trades that could go forward probably involve Chris Boucher and PJ Tucker, people being moved around. Trey, how you doing? What's going on? Thoughts? Let's go. How you doing? And then tell me what you think about Davion leaving.
I'm doing good. I'm a little low on sleep. I was this close to sleeping through the Brandon Ingram news, and then my wife asked me, "Who's Brandon Ingram?" And just like like the SpongeBob meme where he just goes, and then I was like, "Oh, like a man should grab my podcast mic and went, I got a pod to do." Just started moseying over to the room, but I'm I'm happy. Like the Raptors, like I tweeted out, the Raptors got a bucket getter for cheap. It's hard to be mad at the overall trade. They've executed another trade where they're recouping another asset. Pretty good piece of business.
Davion netting them 3 second-round picks. Pretty nifty because now somebody said in my
Pretty cool.
replies that they liked the framing of Jalen McDaniels netting them 3 rather than Davion. Well, however you want to split it, you split it that way. That's how it works for
Yeah.
you. But the Raptors, they're up on second-round picks for our friend Nabil, who is in chat. He what did he say? Work hours, something like that. I can't remember. But the second round pick, which is I guess very important in this day and age, this CBA environment, the Raptors are up. They lose one, they make sure they go get one. They still have that so sexy 2025 Portland
Ooh.
second round pick, which when we thought it was that pick, we talked ourselves out of because they're 9-1 in their last 10. But now it's sexy again. Davion will start there. I know it's the second round pick, but he is highly correlated with winning
Yeah.
minutes on this Raptors team. He is highly correlated with playing good defense on this Raptors team. What he does at the point of attack, essential to the Raptors defense. That is borne out in the film. That is borne out in the numbers. What he does on offense, underwhelming, but could be seen as stabilizing. Now, the Raptors have an opportunity to upgrade if Emmanuel quickly gets that behind in gear and starts playing some defense, starts moving the ball a little bit quicker. Where do you sit on the Raptors as a team? And I'm assuming PJ Tucker is not lacing up the kicks for the Raptors for the third time in his career, but go ahead.
I'm very fond of PJ Tucker as a Raptor. The Raptors were a team that got pushed and kicked over for a really long time, and that fateful day, DeMar DeRozan and PJ Tucker did not have it that day, and
that was
changed the
big.
course of the franchise. It was. It
They
felt
went up
like
on Lance Stevenson like, not
these aren't little
happening.
dinos anymore. But I think like the Davion trade signals to you what the second half of the season is going to be, and probably how many games Brandon Ingram is going to play. They're trying to capture the flag. They're trying to get it as many ping pong balls as possible. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but the Raptors defense is catered around Davion's skill set and being able to pick up really high, force late shot clock opportunities, and replacing that with Emmanuel quickly makes it really tough to win minutes. Do the Raptors change that over the course of the season? Maybe, but they've clearly decided that one, they want to showcase and see what Jamal has heading into next year, and two, they're not trying to win as many games as possible. They're trying to figure out which guys are going to be like tenable for the team next year, because next year is the season where they're going to try to be actually good.
So from the YouTube expert, which is helpful if you have any tips on how to grow the channel, please let us know. Says, quote, "You guys in the Raptors media with your Davion propaganda should be rewarded by the Raptors front office." Dude, you should be thanking us. If the propaganda works, the Pull Up Trade podcast netted you a second round pick, dude. But the Davion stuff, I know there's one group that says like he's the worst guy ever, he's a villain, and there's one group that is like he's elite, he has a truly elite NBA skill, and then there's the middle group, which is like contextually he helps this team. There's a lot of different views on Davion. He's been very polarizing here and in Sacramento, and now I assume he will be polarizing in Miami. But I tell you what, for a guy who is good friends with Jonathan Isaac, a guy who was reposting Daily Wire stuff on his Instagram, and a guy who has a Cybertruck, Florida, I think Davion is going to love, and heat culture, no work, no check. I think Davion probably is going to fit really well into what Miami wants to do, and the Raptors get a second round pick for it. What should be interesting is the state of the team afterwards, because again, we've talked about this. Davion is not crazy. He's not the best player around. He is like a fringe at this point, fringe / has a foothold in the NBA level player. But the Raptors built a defense where he was so important to what they did. The last couple games, before he got injured, Manuel quickly, I went back just quickly to rewatch all of his pick and roll possessions. He did a really good job. He did, I thought, like a great job in lock and trail and shooting the gap. It made me think like, this could be good, because this is what we wanted from Davion, to begin with, or not Davion, from Emmanuel to begin with. This is what New York told us. Those liars. They told us, oh yeah, this guy's sick on defense. Weasels. The Raptors, they have an avenue to better defense, and it is in Jamal Shed improving, and it is in Emmanuel quickly improving. And then offensively, you need Emmanuel quickly to do a better job of setting the table. But I was wondering, because Davion plus talented players in Sacramento were lineups that win minutes. Davion plus talented players in Toronto, lineups that win minutes. Now it's, who steps in? What does that look like? And it's looking like, as you said, Brandon Ingram probably not playing a ton of games. Emmanuel quickly, probably they're careful with his health. Everybody careful with health. I mean, what you and I said we would go closer or start sooner on the capture the flag, watching college stuff this year. Probably the All-Star break. Maybe back end of February, we do our first film watch along of a high-level prospect on this channel. What do you make of the Raptors' tank status?
The engine has already started. The tank is moving a little bit, and everybody's on board for the most part. All four rookies are probably going to play every night now, because there's a slight chance that Boucher gets traded. PJ is a bio candidate, or might be grouped together with Boucher, but they've lost significant amount of rotation minutes with those three guys, and Brandon probably not playing as well. They put themselves in a position where you can highlight both like the core three guys. They could play well, and the bench will likely lose the game for them, because their rookies are very up and down. You're going to get good performances from them, but to expect consistency, even though their record is like fairly easy, I think that would be expecting too much. So they're gunning for that top 4 selection, and hopefully the ping pong balls are in our favor.
Also, for anybody who likes debate format shows, you'll debate perverts. We have Lewis Zatzman coming on in like 20 minutes, and he was lower on the Ingram deal than we were, and we'll have a bit of a back and forth to present both sides, because S was kind of he was easy, he fell, he rolled over, he showed his belly. He was like, he didn't fight it very hard. You know what I mean?
He just, it's because we beat him down. We talked about this trade for, I want to say, at least 10 hours, and why it would work. I sent him every 40-point game Brandon Ingram has had in his career on a daily basis. So
Well, the
Lewis
interesting go ahead.
Lewis is just going to be another victim of the process.
Yep, that's right, brother. The the most like obviously the reason for why the Brandon Ingram trade is polarizing is, and I'll say this, I'm on the hey, I believe in it side. If for anybody who's familiar with my work or my tweets, I hate saying that. Oh, are you familiar with my tweets, dude? Um, I'm pro Ingram trade. However, here's the thing. I had fans upset with me after Schroeder won the MVP at FIBA, and I was like, this changes nothing. We have like 1,000 games of this guy playing basketball at the
Yeah.
NBA level. We know what this guy is. And guess what? The idealized version of Dennis was not what we got. The idealized version of Rudy Gay was not what we got. However, you and I sat here after the RJ trade, after the Quickly trade, and we said, you and I said, maybe Quickly won't pop off like crazy, but we saw something with RJ. RJ has been closer to an idealized version of himself. Still lots of room for improvement. Still not super efficient. Still things to get better. I need Ingram to be that idealized version. The Raptors have made a big bet on Darko, his system, and its ability to pull that type of play out of everybody who walks in this door. That is the huge swing factor. We will pitch this with great gumption to Lewis Zatzman to try and convince him of our side when he gets in here. Trey, PJ Tucker, Chris Boucher. You and I talked, a decent amount about Chris Boucher on the way up to the trade deadline. I wrote this big piece about how he's an all-time Raptor, and I did it in anticipation of Chris will probably be leaving soon. And he's an all-time Raptor in his own way. Not that he's, at the level of certain guys, but he is on merit one of the best role players the Raptors have ever had. It just didn't come
100%.
it just didn't come during their greatest stretch. What do we think happens with Chris Boucher? Are you holding out hope on Julian Strother or something like that? Are you
If we
really
got Julian, I would react like it was Luka. If we got Julian
Dude,
Strother,
you have such great reactions. They last night when they were like 2031 Raptors second pick. Oh, let's go.
Because I already was coping. I saw S's little scowl. He was already like this, thinking it was the Portland pick. But all great things can be done through Masai Ujiri. But I think if I were to guess, they would either A, group PJ and Boucher together for like a larger expiring, get both of those guys out of the door. Another guy you could probably buy and not play, and that helps with the tank some more. I think trading Boucher isn't necessarily a priority because they'll be able to re-sign Brandon and get under the tax and let Chris walk. But if I were to guess, he'll probably have his selection of teams. Like I think Houston makes a lot of sense. You can get Jayshawn Tate, for example, another guy you could just throw out and play. Houston needs some help in terms of like rebounding, needing an extra bench big, and you can get a second in there as well. But I think the Raptors have done most of their work. I think they aren't in a position anymore where you could take on like a lot of the Denver noise you thought was Zeke Naji probably coming the Raptors' way and potentially trying to get some salary out of him or get some value out of him. I don't think they're at that point anymore just because they've made they're going to make a very large financial like investment in Ingram. So it's an exchange for expiring, or I could see a possibility where Chris decides like, I've been here for a long time. I want to stay here, see out the rest of the year, similar to like Fred. And then I'll decide what I do in the summer.
Chris, I wouldn't hate an extension. Like I really wouldn't. They've talked about it, and I suspect like if Chris wasn't as sold on the Raptors as he is, the organization's interest in Chris, I don't think meets how much he's interested in the organization, quite frankly. But there's still room for them to bridge that gap and for him to be a guy who retires as a Raptor. He is, but like they did this last year where Chris, I mean, he didn't play. He played 2 games during their 16-game losing streak. They sat that guy because they're like, wins too many minutes, provides too much energy for this low energy, chill guy losing streak we need to tank. And I do wonder, like, if Chris resigns or if he stays, if Ingram's there, all these guys, does it look like, there's a lot of guys in suits right now. You know what I mean? That is what I wonder
Yeah.
about going down the rest of the season. Now, I do want to talk about the how much the Raptors gave up, because we're going to talk about mostly fit with Lewis. We'll talk about fit, Brandon
Yeah.
Ingram going forward. Let's circle the wagons on how much of a home run this deal is. There's been references made to the Jakob Poeltl trade, which I disagree with. There's been references made to the Rudy Gay trade. How do you feel, or how did you feel at the time about Ed Davis when he went out? Did you throw your hands in the air like, no? Where were you on Ed Davis? Jose Calderon, Ed Davis, a second-round pick and cash to the Memphis Grizzlies in exchange for Hamed Haddadi and small forward Rudy Gay. Where do you think, looking back in the Wayback Machine, that this trade compares to Rudy Gay?
See, I don't think it's Rudy Gay in a sense, just because one, like, Brandon Ingram's better than him, and it offers just like it's lower risk. They aren't letting out like good rotation minutes that you want long term. Like Jose Calderon was a Raptor that was a part of the culture, a guy that you probably wanted to be there a long period of time. But Bruce Brown wasn't that. Kelly Olynyk wasn't that. And I think like the really interesting part that isn't necessary, they got off a bad contract in that trade. It helps them for the tax situation. They're going to be able to get off more money and make the contract lower risk, much easier to stomach. If things don't work out, it's most likely going to be a shorter deal. Well, I don't think it's Rudy Gay. I do think there is similarities with the trade of that the Raptors are stacking talent and trying to see what works. Rudy Gay and DeMar were both very, very talented, but necessarily weren't the greatest fit together. That might happen with Brandon Ingram as well, but the Raptors were so diluted with talent across the team where that doesn't necessarily matter. They put themselves in a position where they now have flexibility where they can pair one of the New York guys and Brandon Ingram to go get a guy, or if Brandon Ingram does play really well and one of those guys don't make sense around him and Scotty, they can find a better fit around them. Our good friend Makai Bruce has been hammering home that we have 16 wins all week to everybody we know, and like that reigns true. They aren't a good team. You worry about fit once you have talent that you believe in and that you know are going to win minutes together, and then you can fit around the tertiary pieces. The Raptors aren't even that close in the process. Let's first figure out who's good.
Yeah, and also just like what are the chances that Brandon Ingram on his next contract is like a player that the Raptors just have to attach picks to or something? Yeah. To me, I think very low. And maybe that's too optimistic, but I do think that's very low. You're filling out the cap sheet and you'll be able to pivot if you have to. I mean, the Thunder traded Josh Giddey. You know what I mean? They got Caruso for Josh Giddey. You know what I mean? That you have to be able to pivot. Terrence Ross went for Serge Ibaka. Greaves Vasquez went for Norm and OG. You got to be able to pivot. And I think Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk were not pivot players at the end of this season. Bruce Brown wasn't even a Raptor. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Kelly Olynyk, our friends pointed out that Rashawn Holmes had to have a first attached to him to get off of him a couple years ago, right? Kelly Olynyk, if they wanted to get off that contract, it probably would have taken a pick. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Ingram probably is going to be a guy who you don't have to do anything like that, where you might be able to get surplus value. And if not that, you know, you're going to be able to play him on the team and see how that works. We'll discuss that more with Lewis. The Poeltl trade comparison, I think, is an interesting one because I thought that the Raptors gave up too much for Poeltl in the trade and then signed him to a fine contract. And I don't see anybody who can make the case that the Raptors gave up too much for Ingram. That would seem silly on its face. But what might happen is he gets a contract that probably is pretty, expensive for what Ingram is giving you, especially if he's playing, between 45, 60 games a year or something like that, 2/3 of the season roughly. What do you think contract-wise? And we're kind of beating the same, thing that we did last night, but is there a range that you're comfortable with?
I think your cap needs to be probably $40 million. I think if it's 3 years, 120, that's stomachable. That's less than what you were going to pay Pascal Siakam. And you're in a position where if it's short and it doesn't work out, it's something that you can get off like fairly easily. Um, Try to angle it very similarly like to the Fred VanVleet contract, where they have a couple years guaranteed, and the third year, if it doesn't work out, there's a non-guarantee. There's an option where they are able to get out of the deal or make it very appealing to another team that wants to have it. I think the issue with the Jakob Poeltl trade, like you said, was never really the player. It was the opportunity cost that was lost. There was a clear like delineation that the Raptors decided. They decided that they were going to go for it in terms of direction. And they had an opportunity where teams were calling them and they could have reaped way more picks than they did a year later, with trading Pascal, trading Fred, trading OG, and like going that path. I don't think with this trade, the Raptors have changed on their path of like rebuilding and trying to acquire Cooper. Brandon Ingram likely isn't going to play many games, and they're going to have a good opportunity to win the lottery. And next, you want all of Scotty's max years to be involved in winning, and getting a guy like Brandon Ingram helps with that. So I think haven't changed course. So I don't see the issue in the overall trade, unless you believe like the 2026 draft is going to have 20 guys that are going to absolutely be better than Brandon Ingram, which seems like super unlikely.
You and I have this funny little thing that we do. We can't resist taking the W on it, but we're going to say over and over again, everyone's going to get super excited about a draft. And then by February, everyone's going to say, everyone sucks except for three guys. And it happens every year. And 2026, I don't know what people think about it, but I guess we'll see. Chris Boucher, Davon Mitchell. We'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. Davon, a little, I guess, eulogy for his time in Toronto. Thank you for providing a lot of gumption at the point of attack. Thank you for providing, a structure to a defense so that we could see just how fun this team could be defensively, and that they can be, performing well, seeing that the high point, high pickup, high pressure defense works depending on who is running it. And thank you, Davon, for that. And 3 second-round picks, including a 2025 second-round pick from Portland. That is an interesting and tidy little piece of business, because the Raptors get to see something, and we also get a bunch of second-round picks. I mean, how do you feel about the full tenure of Davon Mitchell at this point now?
I think like this stretch like clearly proves that like he can be like your backup point guard. Like he's going to get a second contract and he's going to be fine. His playmaking was much better than I thought it was going to be. Like the way that he operated with Jakob gave me an idea of like what you kind of want to see around the team, and like Scotty especially. The thought process of getting Emmanuel quickly on the trade that they made is having two guys that have synergy, that orbit around each other, getting that feel and synergy similar to what like Jokic and Jamal Murray has. Like obviously not to that tier, but what the interesting thing that Davon did is that he would throw the ball to Scotty, throw the ball to Jakob, and get out of the way. And those guys' synergy worked really well together, and they were able to create offense for each other, pass the ball really well in terms of getting guys who were cutting to the lane, whether that's Ochai, Grady, so on and so forth. And it also like accentuated like how valuable Jakob is to the team. You see a world where those guys work together. They're your front court of the future. And you now know that with that particular archetype, there's a world where you can make a good defense that both like Grady or Brandon Ingram or Archer on the court, and the defense is still like fairly good. So I think it was a lot of learning for the Raptors on what they should be looking for and how they can improve overall.
Yeah. And also, Cody brought this up in chat. Cody Wiles, who covers the 905. Several chatters have also said this too. Davion was a guy who supported the 905. He was at a lot of games. Davion was also, he's pretty popular in the locker room. Well-liked, tough-nosed guy, got after on defense, was well-liked. Those are all great things. In a tough season where the Raptors have already had a 10 or 11 game losing streak, in a season where they went a month winning one game, and it was against the Brooklyn Nets without, their guys, it's good to have meaningful guys like that. They lose in this package of, last night and today. They lose Bruce Brown, they lose Kelly Olynyk, they lose Davon Mitchell. All those guys are guys who are important to the framework of the locker room, but ultimately none of those guys are in the future plans. When Davon was traded here, we wondered aloud, like, if he shoots the three well, if it's kind of no frills offense, just stabilizing the offense and getting off ball, if he brings that defense, maybe there's a future where he is on the team for a little while longer. However, none of that is the case. And what the Raptors have is more draft capital. They have more opportunity to, make things happen in the future. And that's what we're looking at, man. Davon Mitchell, Miami Heat, Bruce Brown, New Orleans Pelican, PJ Tucker, Toronto Raptor, Kelly Olynyk, New Orleans Pelican. What do you think happens with Kelly and Bruce in New Orleans, by the way? You know what I mean?
I think Bruce is 100% getting bought out. Like, I think he's at either a Laker or probably a Nugget by like next week, which I think would be really cool if he goes back to Denver, because they'll have like 48 minutes of that particular role that him and Russ both operating within the middle, working with Jokic in the short role, which is super cool. And he's finally started playing well. That little goose said that he couldn't get it done, and he gave us
little goose.
He gave us like 3 weeks of like solid NBA play. There was like times that we thought that like he's gonna reap a second and we're gonna just have to stomach it, but he turned into Brandon Ingram. So he did exactly what he needed to do. I've got the spin that I've needed, so I'm happy. But I think Kelly is probably gonna stay on the Pelicans. Like, his contract, I don't see the Pelicans strapping another pick to get off of him. They're probably decided that they're going to be a Cooper team also. And for next year, he's probably just going to be an expiring that they'll be able to use in trades next year.
Yeah. And I'll say quickly as well, make sure to like the video. There's a bunch of people in chat. Help spread it to other people, gets more people to watch, etc., all that good stuff. And I will say, for the vibes, everybody, sea mist and grapefruit. You smell that, people? That's Axe. You know what that is. And I'll tell you, Axe is thrilled to announce their partnership with the Toronto Raptors. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary. Everybody knows this. And just like the Raptors, Axe is all about pushing boundaries and breaking new ground. Celebrate this milestone with the Raptors, with Axe, and with the Pull Up Trade podcast, and feel the energy of the game every day. Go grab some Axe stuff, the collaboration, okay? You people can find it at all the major retailers, Walmart, Shoppers Drug Mart, Real Canadian Superstore. Get it now before it's too late. This is an Axe-sponsored podcast. Now, here's the thing, man. Lewis is in chat. We'll let him set up all of his stuff where he's not in chat. He's in the talking thing, the studio,
the lobby.
I guess. The lobby, the studio. We have a question from Ryan Halawadi that says, no one really talking about what Kelly brought from a playmaking big standpoint really helped that win streak. What do you think the plan is there for the team to replace? So this is a really great question, because that is true. Kelly definitely is not doing a bunch of great stuff defensively. He's got active hands. However, and Kellen Nesmir here says, I love Axe and their collaboration with the Toronto Raptors. Hell yeah.
Yes, sir.
I can smell the sea mist and grapefruit now. However, Kelly helps the offense a lot because he is not only a facsimile of the delay action, pistol action, 5-out stuff that the Raptors like to run, but we're looking at a team that needs that stuff because it's a facsimile of what Jakob Poeltl provides. So, Lewis, we're going to get you in here, man. We're going to talk about it.
Wow.
Lewis Zatzman, tell us what you think about Kelly Olynyk leaving, and then we're going to try and convince you about Brandon Ingram. The beard is huge now, by the way.
I know.
Yeah, I've been meaning to shave for a while. Busy days here in the Zatzman household. I'll miss Kelly. I that inverted pick and roll. He had it working with Bruce Brown, had it working with Scotty Barnes, looking good. But that was like 6 possessions total, I think, on the season.
Enough for me to ask Bruce about it, though. I talked to Bruce about that, and he was like, "Hell yeah, it rocks."
Yeah, I mean, it does
nothing
rock,
more.
But, exactly. Maybe they can give Mobo a couple touches there, see what happens. If it scores, great. If it doesn't, even better, baby.
I believe the term is wins and lessons. That's correct. One of yours from last year, Lewis. Okay, Lewis. Trey and I sang the praises of this Brandon Ingram trade. You, Mr. Poo-Poo, you're part of Trey and I. We're the proletariat media. We like the bucket getter, Brandon Ingram. You, Josh Lewinberg, Michael Grange, big media, hates bucket getters. Tell us your perspective.
Wow, tough framing there. That's rough out of here. Okay, huge talent upgrade. Probably the best offensive player on the team immediately. If not him, Scotty, but they're pretty close. Brings a lot of what they need. Do they want a huge talent upgrade right now? Like, Masai Ujiri opened the season saying it's time for a rebuild. Patience. He was not patient. This is not a rebuild. This is instantaneously getting the most expensive player available so that you can pay him. I really like Brandon Ingram's game. The team will be much more watchable with him on the court. I'm not sure from my GM perspective if that is the best move for the team. From my perspective, me, Lewis, I'm excited to watch this basketball. But I don't think this takes them closer to a championship. Now, there's a road they can walk, right? And I think I listened to your podcast last night. By the way, for a midnight podcast, you guys are just such professionals, man. Unbelievable stuff.
Nice.
There's a road, right? Brandon Ingram rehabs his ankle sprain for the rest of the season. They get Dylan Harper, and bada boom, bada bing, you're good to go. You pay him, not quite max money. Grady and Jacoby improve, and quickly is healthy. And I mean, you got a stew cooking. But there's so many ifs there. Like, he's an unrestricted upcoming free agent. So if you are going to rest him going into free agency, you do that with the knowledge he's about to get paid. Nobody just sits with an ankle sprain for their entire last year before they're about to get paid, unless they know they're going to get paid. Well, you also can't pay a guy less than the max. If you say, just sit, you're going to get paid. Like, there's a real tension there, right? If he comes back to play, then they're not going to lose that many games. They have a really easy schedule. And if he doesn't come back to play, then you got to be the team to pay him. Or he walks and somebody else pays him, and then what did you just do? Like, there's a very fine line. Maybe he comes back, he plays 10 games, he's great. They win like 5 or 6 of them, and then he rests again. Then you pay. But there's a lot of ifs there, right?
Wait,
there's a lot of ifs. And on top of that, can I just finish this thought?
Go ahead.
This team has not been an impressive team at paying below market salaries to free agents. Like, historically, they pay 20% above market. I am not expecting Ingram to say, you know what, I want to be in Toronto so bad, I'll take 32. That just seems so unlikely to me. Sorry, you go ahead, though.
So Fred and OG are the last, I think, big-time home run deals. Fred, for the 4 years, 85 was pretty team-friendly. His 218 was pretty team-friendly. And OG's, what was it, 454? or something, 354, whatever the hell it was. That was extremely team friendly as well. Many people thought he might get a max extension or close to it. Where are you as far as having faith in, obviously, Masai Ujiri doing his and Bobby Webster doing their due diligence prior to this trade? They met with Brandon Ingram, all the murmurs. Like I was telling, our friend group beforehand, they're like, is there actually stuff between Ingram and the Raptors? I was like, yeah, they have been talking many times over the past however long. And how do you feel about the Raptors, I guess, technically figuring out the route to a contract, having it more or less signed already? And then like, how are you on that? Where's your, I guess, confidence index on Masai having done that already or Bobby having done that already?
I don't see a world in which they do this trade without having done that.
Yeah.
It seems like
100%.
just negligence to have done this trade without having had that. But what could they got to be paying him a lot. If that's the case,
maybe
do you foresee a world where it's less than 40?
The Malik Monk deal, hopefully. No,
I mean, that would be phenomenal for the team.
Yeah.
I would be surprised. I would be surprised if it was less than 40. I'll be honest with you. If it's less than 40,
I think
I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah, I think he's getting 3 years, 120 million. I think he would struggle on the open market to get more than $40 million just based on how few teams have money. And the Raptors have probably already agreed to something of some length. And like $40 million over 3 years isn't really going to hurt the Raptors. And like Zufi mentioned this in chat, like the Raptors seem to like pay like sort of like a Toronto tax in their free agents. There's a lot of fear in losing free agents. It's hard for them to acquire those guys and letting guys walk. Like even though they lost Fred VanVleet, they were still willing to pay him $35 million, which to some would have probably been an overpay.
Let's ask Lewis. If he gets $40 million a year, 3 years, 120, how do you feel about it?
That's your team. Like he is worth that. He's a really good player. I don't want to minimize how talented I think Brandon Ingram is. He is a terrific player. Instantly walks into the team as the best pull-up shooter, the best driver, the best isolation player, probably the best pick and roll. Well, no, Scotty last year was phenomenal. But like he is the best at a lot of things right away. He is worth that money. But if you pay him that money, this is your team. Like quickly, RJ, Jakob, Scotty, Brandon. That's a lot of money. They just walked away from Scotty, OG, Pascal because they were like, well, we don't want to commit the team to that money. And in the intermittent time, they added Jacoby and Grady and Mobo and Shed, which is a really nice influx of talent. But and then they have this year's pick. Is that enough? Is that like to go between those two cores from this is your team to this is your team? You add that in the middle. Was that the point of all this?
I don't think that was the point, but I think it's always fluid for one. And I think also this idea of the Raptors just being able to like stockpile, let's say, picks and always pick the best talent. And suddenly they look like the OKC Thunder. Like that's how a rebuild looks. I don't think was ever realistic. I don't think that was ever going to happen. And I think that the Raptors, that was never feasible for them because Scotty Barnes is not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and both in who he is as a person and what he provides on the court. And the Raptors do not have a J-Dub. They perhaps this year will get their equivalent of J-Dub or Chet Holmgren, who knows. However, I think that the Raptors took an opportunity to get talent in the door from which they can pivot from. And I think this is actually a continuous, I guess, behavior. I think this is consistent with what they did getting RJ and IQ, because the Pascal trade was more or less a look at how they're going to be able to pivot out of it. And they did. It ended up netting Brandon Ingram, by transitive properties. You like that, Trey? And then as far as like the RJ and IQ thing, they can pivot out of that as well. IQ is on a deal that they can pivot out of. RJ is on a deal that they can pivot out of. Everything is pivotable. They are in the lane with 1 foot hung and swiveling on it. And they have more talent on the team. And while it could go poorly, I think there is a route. And again, this is the difference is like, there's one route that could be good. There's one route that could be bad. I think there's a route to this being better for the team because this team will build through the draft with the seconds they've got, with the first they've got this year, with the first they've got next year. But they will also build through trades, which is primarily how they built the championship team. They did good drafting, but they had to trade to get there. And they had to build up Grievous before they traded him. They had to build up Terrence before they traded him. I think this is a move that leaves them able to pivot. I think before we discuss, I guess, the fit, we'll talk actual basketball right away. Lewis, any thoughts coming back?
Yeah. Actual basketball wise, I'm really excited to watch Brandon and Scotty play together. I just got started on that piece earlier today. I'm hoping to get it out tomorrow. Depends on how much I can work through the night after writing last night too. But I think just Brandon's scoring ability and driving ability, I think should really, really help Scotty lean back into the strengths that he has mastered and lean away from these sort of developing skills that he has gone more towards this year. More cutting, less pull-up shooting, basically.
So
I also think playing with Jakob is going to be huge for Brandon.
This is the interesting thing is that, and this is why I believe in this trade mostly, is that I think Brandon Ingram is going to leave the Raptors when he does, or when he plays for the Raptors, he's going to be perceived as a better player than when he was playing, in, I guess, let's say New Orleans, in LA. Well, LA wasn't really that great for Brandon, let's be honest.
Yeah.
However, there is a world, because as I said last night, Scotty is in the 80th percentile per synergy in dribble jumpers, in pull-up jumpers. That is an absurdity to me. And I understand, like, I've gotten pushback from fans on this all year where it's just like, whatever Scotty does, it's development. And then when Scotty's better in a year, you say, well, it was the development. Well, he's going to get better. But there's still ways to play that are more conducive for the future. Some players do take on too much of the dribble jumper. Brandon Ingram is a good case of this. Brandon Ingram is a talented driver, but he stops short all too often. He's a very talented middle of the floor shot maker. But everybody, even as he's getting traded to the Raptors, is like, ooh, it'd be nice if he could go to the rim more. Exact same for Scotty Barnes. I want Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes both to allow each other to spend more time at the rim. I want the Raptors, who are a team that has excellent shot location data and should be performing much better than they are now that they have a shot maker, to actually be able to hit shots in this system that puts them in the right spots. I want all that stuff to happen. I think Brandon Ingram is helpful in that way. And I know a lot of people said that Pascal and Scotty didn't fit. I think as far as like the timeline and expectations, that makes sense. It didn't, you could see it was coming to an end. Everything was kind of murky, whatever. But by the time Scotty and Pascal had finally played together under Darko's system, they were both putting up absurd numbers, insanely efficient. The Raptors had a month-long stretch of like the 5th best offense. Pascal's true shooting percentage was like 65%. Scotty's was like 62%. They were killing teams on flex actions. They were killing teams on wedge screens. They were killing teams on like off-ball screens. There's a lot of room for the Raptors to dominate with two big wings in the same way that Pascal and Scotty found out. You could do the same thing with Scotty and Ingram. That is what I'm kind of hoping for, is that usage.
They also have a guy in RJ who they didn't have alongside Siakam and Barnes. RJ's ability to churn those drives to the rim will really help those stopping short drives. Like his sort of, I've been sort of writing recently about like hyena offense versus lion offense, where the hyena feasts on the already killed carcass, right? The lion gets it himself or herself more often. But RJ's the hyena, those drives that Scotty and RJ, those ISOs that they create, RJ's cutting off of. he's crashing the glass. He's curling around that pin down second side to reach the rim. Scotty and Pascal never really had the best hyena to really punch up when they started stuff. Yeah. And I think RJ will really help there, as will Quickly's cutting and shooting, right? Quickly's 40% from deep on 10 attempts a game, or 3 or whatever, is also huge. Like, there's a path to this looking really, really good. Not championship caliber, but really good.
So yeah, I think the inverse can happen also. Like for Brandon, we discussed like isn't the greatest cutter, doesn't get to the rim a lot. Having those guys, he hasn't been in a situation where he has several guys who could take the ball from him, allow him to operate and become the catch and shoot shooter that the numbers say that he can be. Get to the rim, utilize his length, and be the play finisher that he can be also. I think playing with a guy like Jakob, playing with Scotty, and having two guys that can like orbit off ball and like both RJ and Quickly is going to, I think, makes it easier for him to buy in within the system because he's going to be able to get the ball back and score in much easier ways. So I see his efficiency going up also.
So let's talk defense. Marcus Aurelius, the Gladiator, says, does RJ, Ingram, Grady being poor defenders who can't guard their own shadows mean one of RJ or Grady are on their way out? So I'll give you a fun little stat. I'm not going to advocate for RJ's defense or Grady's defense. Grady is the worst defender of that group by some measure. RJ is part of a 99th percentile 4-man quartet defensively. RJ, I think in this last stretch and this year perhaps, has shown that if he's in, and he did it with the Knicks as well, if he's in a strong defensive group, RJ can survive. That is not true for Grady at this point. Hopefully it becomes true. I feel, and perhaps incorrectly, but I do feel that Ingram will actually enhance this defense. He is massive. The Raptors are a team that need rotation from the wings. They are a team that needs rotation towards the rim, and they are a team that needs length all over the court. The Raptors, when they get beat, they're usually the smaller team. They get dominated when they're the smaller team. When they're the bigger team, they get to bully, they get to mash, they get to find their way to different avenues of winning. I think that Brandon Ingram provides a ton of size. Tobias Harris is a great example of this. Tobias Harris is not a talented defender, but he's huge for his position oftentimes. When he plays a 3, he's massive. He gums up tons of possessions just by proxy of his size. And Brandon Ingram is 6'8", 6'9", with a 7'3", 7'4" wingspan. He is massive. If he's at the 3 and Scotty's at the 4 and Jakob's at the 5, this is a Titanic-sized team. If RJ is at the 2, if Quickly's at the 1, Grady, I think, goes to the bench with this for the next year. We'll talk a little bit more about that probably once Trey bounces out and Lewis and I will discuss it. But I think that there's a lot of room for this team to get better defensively with Ingram there just because of the size. Does anybody have thoughts on that? Optimism for defense.
I think you've already seen that formula like with the Pelicans when they were healthy and when they were good. They won with length. They were a massive team. They had Trey Murphy. They had Brandon Ingram. They had Herb Jones and Jonas behind them. They won with being able to offer funky lineups, be much longer than the teams that they had, and that stopped teams from getting to the rim, even though they didn't necessarily have the most talented defenders outside of Herb. I think Scotty has proven that he can rise the level of defense around him. I think what will probably determine how well the defense actually is for Ingram, I don't have many worries, honestly, is can Emmanuel quickly replicate what Davon Mitchell was doing? And if he can, the Raptors can use their length to be able to ward teams off from the rim. And then ideally Brandon Ingram's length also just helps with them rebounding the ball. Like you saw what Carl Anthony Towns did to them. When they're playing teams that are massive, they get dominated on the glass, and they're adding another person that can help on the wing. Because when their wing rotation doesn't necessarily have the biggest dudes, when you're playing like an Ocha, he's playing up a position and guarding threes, just makes it a lot harder overall. So defense, I'm fairly confident that they can put out like a decent lineup overall that can help them win minutes.
So I'll say quickly too, because somebody said, or I'll say expeditiously, Irv Blitzer says RJ going to the 2 spot will be huge for him. He can bully 2 guards. Something quick. The Raptors did have, like Lewis, when he said that, RJ wasn't present for Scottie and Pascal. It's true. Like they played 9 games together, but is that a sample to like bet on?
Yeah.
Who knows? But if you're going on a small sample, when RJ did play the 2 in Toronto, the 9 games he played shooting guard with Scottie and Pascal in the lineup, roughly, he shot almost 60% from the field. He gave you 20 and 3 and 7, and he was hyper efficient. And we watched the Raptors play a lot of pinch post actions with him against guys like Malik Monk, against guys like Steph Curry. He started bullying cross matches really hard and could go into the post. I think there's a lot of room for the Raptors to be a very unique offense that is able to get into unique matchups, that is able to dominate the offensive glass, that is able to be good shot makers with RJ, Brandon, and Scottie from different spots on the floor. And if IQ steps up, man, and starts shooting a ton of threes, there's a lot of room for offensive harmony here. And the Raptors, for all that we've talked about their defense and how it went from 28th in the league to 1st in the league, they have not been good offensively. There's a root here that they can have their cake and eat it too a little bit. Lewis, thoughts on cake?
Yeah, man, pretty good. I like chocolate. I like red velvet. No, so the thing about Brandon Ingram's defense, I actually think it's a little overstating it to say, he can't guard. He's probably a cut above RJ and a big cut above Grady. He, like, if you look at his on-offs, for example, this, like, one year it's a little positive, the next year it's a little negative. You see a guy who doesn't determine the team defense either positively or negatively, but is determined by it. And that's not a bad thing. You can build a strong defense with a lot of guys like that. The Knicks, for example, with RJ, with Quickly, built a really strong defense, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, with a lot of guys who were carried by the defensive structure. And I think Brandon can do that. Now, they still need a player or 2 more who catalyze defensive strength. Scottie does that. Let's get Davion did that. He's gone, right?
Yeah.
Let's get some more in there. You've been using the term wing bastard. I love that. They still need that. Cooper Flag would be nice. There's still needs, obviously. Brandon doesn't solve all of them. But I don't think he will be a defensive negative by any means.
Okay. I see people talking about where does Cooper Flag fit. We can't cross that bridge until we come to it. Although I do love being able to dream on Cooper Flag. Although from the podcast that is now lost to history that we did on the road trip out to Quebec, scout extraordinaire Josh Codenera said that he thinks that Cooper Flag, when he develops, will actually be somewhat, and maybe he'll come on the podcast to explain this more thoroughly, but he said he sees a lot of overlap between how Brandon Ingram plays and where Cooper Flag will eventually get. They have similar mechanics on their jump shot, for one thing. They have similar builds, except Cooper probably fills out more. And Cooper is that wing bastard. So Brandon can provide a facsimile perhaps, but let's talk about this team, how this restructures, because there is some hemming and hawing about like what happens to Jacoby's minutes, what happens to Grady's minutes, what does development look like. I'm going to come out strong here. I said and have said on this podcast many times that I want the Raptors, no holds barred, to play Jacoby Walter a ton this season. I want them to play Grady Dick a ton this season. However, starting season 3 for Grady Dick, starting season 2 for Grady Dick, or for Jacoby Walter, when Brandon Ingram presumably signs, is close to a max player with these Raptors and is a vaunted piece of the lineup, I think it's a positive to turn the page on this team being competitive and saying, Grady, year 3, you're coming up on an extension. Prove that you can exist in these lineups defensively. Jacoby, prove that you can perhaps compete with Grady. I think those are positives. And I think this year will be very friendly for them to get minutes. This summer will be very important. Where do you guys stand on this? Should there be a longer runway, or does this seem healthy as far as competition in-house?
Yeah, I want competition to be a part of development in general. It's the same model that Houston had. They wanted to put their guys in a competitive situation, so they got guys that help defensively, help build in terms of winning, and that means that like Jalen Green last year when he isn't playing well doesn't play, and he gets a stretch where he plays a lot when he does play well towards the end of the season. And that seems to have helped him. Like their defensive intensity, their defensive level of compete increased with getting those guys there. And I think adding Brandon Ingram now puts guys like Grady, guys like Jacoby, where defense is going to be like really important because they aren't going to get the ball in the same ways that they did, especially Grady. So defense is going to be really important for them to stay on the floor. And in order for them to get to where they need to be, more so in Jacoby's sense, but more off-ball tools and skills in terms of, especially for Jacoby, like getting downhill, being a good driver, being able to put that on the floor is going to help him stay on the floor and develop well for a team that's actually trying to win. Because when you have sometimes the like tanking teams, I won't call the Raptors that per se, but you get a lot of shots that teams, when you're good, you'll never ever see. Like a Ochai Agbaji off the dribble jumper is just never happening on the Boston Celtics. You're now putting these guys in situations where are much more like portable and scalable of what their NBA careers are probably going to look like, and that leads to like more easy developments because there's defined roles. Everyone knows what they're trying to do, and there isn't this I'm getting mine in the possessions where you see like a Jacoby Walter getting 5 possessions where he's the pick and roll ball handler. That's going to be Brandon Ingram. That's going to be Scotty Barnes.
Lewis, I need your thoughts on this, brother.
Yeah, I agree in principle with you, Trey. I think when you apply it to the rest of this year, I'm a little less concerned about competition and more just like get these guys their minutes. But this year, I think especially this is the last shot. It's very clear the Raptors as an organization, as ownership, are not stomaching another year where they intend to lose. And so this is the year, get the high pick. Play Jacoby 30 minutes a game if you need to. I mean, he looked great for that first stretch last night against Memphis. Before he came out, man, they were cooking. But like, play Grady, play Jacoby, play Jamal, play all of these guys as much as you need. See what they do when they can stretch their wings, when they can apply themselves. And then next year, rein it in. This is what we need from you. If you can't do it, you're sitting on the bench. I think there was a game, I forget what game, I forget who they were playing, but it was 2 weeks ago. It was during the winning streak, where Grady sat 2 minutes into the third because he had a terrible closeout to the corner, just fly by, didn't get back into it. Then he sat 2 minutes into the fourth because he had another really bad play. Oh no, the closeout was the fourth. The third was an offensive mistake. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot more of next year is when it's time, when they're healthy, if Grady's defense isn't, if his closeouts are wild and he's not getting back in the play, he might play 10 minutes a game. So I completely agree with you in principle, but I think that might be a little bit down the line than applying that, competition now.
I love competition. I think it's so good. I think it's so important. Also, there's this thing. Grady took a step back last game, and he was like 6 feet off the three-point line, and his shot mechanics changed completely, and he tried to push it from his chest, and it was like 6 feet short on a heave. And that to me was like, damn, this guy just is not strong enough. And I think a lot of the inconsistencies from three comes from him not being strong enough. And I think next year, when he inevitably puts on a bunch of weight in the summer and gets stronger as he matures, I think it's going to be important for him not to play 34 minutes a game and burn all of that off. I think like 25, 26 minutes per game for Grady might be really strong. I still feel very strongly about Grady's potential. It's just maybe a little bit farther in the future than I originally thought. But, these are all considerations. What I want to talk about, because we're in a unique position to talk about it. We're not owned by Sportsnet. We're not owned by any of that. What do you guys think the top end, the ownership affected this? Do you think that there's pressure for the Raptors, like, hey, win again, at least get into the playoffs, the back end? Do you think that there's pressure being applied to Bobby and Masai as decision makers to, I guess, perform better and to expedite this tank or rebuild? I'm curious where everybody sits on that.
I don't think so. Personally,
Really?
I think no, I think Masai has proven enough of himself and the drafting that he does that it's them, if they wanted to take it much slower, it's a totally acceptable position. I think overall, you've already made your investment with Scotty, RJ, and IQ. I think heading into the season, a lot of that would have been, especially if IQ played more, is let's see what these guys have. And that probably could have rolled into next year, heading in towards the deadline. The second year of Scotty's max would have been more challenging, but I think next year would have been a totally viable way. People say the draft is really good. We'll see next year. But they, even with this trade, they haven't jumped themselves into an automatic playoff qualifier. I think this trade really was, Brandon Ingram was such a low cost opportunity. The Raptors really struggled getting talent through the door outside of the draft, and they took advantage of it.
Lewis, you got to go right away. I want to hear.
Have we seen losing
shots
impact their bottom line at all? Ticket prices go up.
Yeah.
I know the stadium's not full, but they're still selling out, right?
Yeah, they sell. They sell.
Yeah.
I think they're still top 10.
So if you're ownership, you're losing games, and you're still making money, you're still selling jerseys, you're still raising ticket prices and selling tickets, you kind of have your cake and eat it too, right?
They've got a stew going, it seems.
Yeah, they got cake in that stew.
All right. I wanted to ask that question because I know, as I've said before, I think Blake could talk about that stuff if he wanted to, and I think he does. I think the Sportsnet people, Grange, all those people talk about this stuff. However, I did want to provide that because a lot of people think some of the media is under the finger and some of the media is not. So we have a unique opportunity as not under the perhaps fake proverbial finger. Hey, is this a thing that's happening? Lewis, before you get out of here, parting shots.
Exciting times. I imagine there's probably more stuff to happen today. Chris Boucher may well be on the move. We'll see. But I'm excited to watch basketball. I hope Ingram plays just because I'm excited to watch him play. And great to chat with you, fellas.
It's been very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Loving the beard, man.
It's powerful.
I'm just so jealous. Look at this shot between us three right now. It just doesn't work. This is just not enough.
You and I are closer than Lewis and I right now, I think.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Lewis is a lumberjack. Yeah.
Yeah, man. He's a man of the woods. And now he's gone. All right. Trey, I guess you're leaving soon as well.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say before you get out of here? S is coming on at 1:30 for people who are listening. I'll be taking listener questions, talking about nonsense, I'm sure. In between that, anything you want to talk about before you jump ship?
Let's talk. We never even mentioned the Kyle Anderson situation.
And Luka.
Oh yes. Oh
yeah.
man.
Okay. Wait. Go Kyle Anderson. Kyle Anderson.
Yeah. My question was just teeing you up. Do you see the Raptors doing something like this, just acquiring a veteran piece with their MLE? And do you think Kyle Anderson would have been a good fit?
I was not gassed for Kyle Anderson. I'll be honest.
Thank you. I people are saying, "Oh, we've got another Scotty off the bench. Look at the playmaking."
I like Kyle Anderson. I do, and I think he adds stuff to teams that are trying to win. However, on this team, Kyle Anderson, I really struggle to see it. he doesn't make a ton of sense. He's supposed to be there to uplift players who are not like. Could you imagine if Kyle Anderson was here and Ingram and Scotty? I think that would be insanity, quite frankly. Yeah. Phoenix Plays E has a good question that we can talk about quickly. Yay or nay, Scotty Barnes should make an all-defensive team this year? Absolutely not. I think that's absurd. OG Anunoby didn't make it when the Raptors were the second-ranked defense. The Raptors just aren't good enough defensively. Scotty will get those selections when his team is good, and I'm perfectly fine with players getting it only when the defenses are good. I don't care. Like, if you're not part of a good defense, this isn't all-star. This isn't all-star votes for me. This is all defense. You got to be good as hell, and your team has to be good as hell. Although that doesn't mean that Scotty is not an all like really great defender, but I don't think it makes sense at all. Luka Doncic, man, we were sitting up there, northern Quebec. You had finished a spa day. I had finished being up on a mountain, snowboarding. Luka gets traded. I hand you my phone because I think that Shams has been hacked, and I think I'm pranking you. I hand you my phone with the Shams tweet, and you look at it, you look at me, and you're like, "Oh, like get out of here! Like that's bullshit." And then you start, and I say, "Click the thing," and you click Shams, and you just like never believe it. And then you hand me my phone back, and I say, "Wait, ESPN posted it. What the hell?" And then we're like, "Okay, is ESPN just like AI aggregating? It automatically creates these posts when Shams posts something.
Yeah.
What's happening here?" And then other reporters start saying it's true. And then Shams doubles down. And then everybody starts saying, wait, this is true. Then we all start screaming and running around like, what? And in between all that, we had a conversation where we're like, you don't trade Luka Doncic. That makes no sense. Yeah. There's like 3 guys you don't trade. Luka, Shea, and Wemby. And I guess Giannis. And Giannis is the guy they asked for, apparently, besides Anthony Davis. Luka, the Laker. Where do you sit on this as a LeBron James fan?
I'm as a LeBron James fan, I am extremely happy. Ring 5 may be on the way. Mark Williams trade is like the perfect big that they've asked for. I remember we were up to like 3 a.m. just like in shock. I got up, I sat down, I was like, no way this is real. I said that like at least 10 times. And there was a different person each in the room just saying, this has to be fake. There's something that went wrong. The trade must be bigger. There must be more first going the Mavericks way. It really goes like to show like you don't know what's going on in the league. You don't know who really could be traded. And like we like as 2 ghouls, we were talking about like Grady Dick is untouchable. He's never going to get traded. And
hey. I didn't say he was untouchable. I didn't say that. You said he was untouchable.
All right, I'll take the ghoul.
Scotty's not untouchable either, obviously. No, if they had made the call, if they're like, hey, Masai, do you want Luka? Give us Scotty. Guess who's wearing Raptors red right now?
Yeah. Easily. It's just like insane process. And I called every Laker fan I knew, and they still didn't believe that it was true. But it was cool because we were all together. Like if I had been at home, I'm like, Luka Doncic got traded. I would have been like, what do you want to eat for dinner? It wouldn't have hit the same. So it was great.
That was awesome, man. We were just running around like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is madness. Yeah, it's geez. And Scotty, I thought was like untouchable, and he still probably is. Like Scotty's not gonna get traded. At least not in the like. It would have to be extenuating circumstances or something like that. But daggum, man, Luka Doncic, and for that package, we couldn't believe it. To me, it seems like collusion.
It seems felt like collusion. We ran to 2K right away. Like, would 2K even accept this trade? And they scoffed at it, just because, like, Luka Doncic is like a once in a lifetime player you'll see you'll get on your friend. The Raptors have never gotten a player of like that ilk, and like he seemed like he was gonna hit heights that Dirk never even thought of as a player. He might still have been the best like Mavs player that they've ever had, which is just insane to say. And they traded that for a much older player and lowered their ceiling while also probably lowering their floor at the same time. It's like probably the most surprising trade in like sports history.
I think it is. Like 100%. Phoenix Plays E says, or Nico Harrison loves Anthony Davis. Listen, man, you can love a player, but GMs are supposed to love players and still do their due diligence. The backstory of Nico Harrison and Rob Pelinka is starting to hang out more after Kobe's essay case, or I don't know if you're supposed to say this term on a live stream, might get demonetized. Anyway, Kobe has a non-consensual interaction, right? Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison start hanging out, apparently. They become fast friends. Nico Harrison is the Nike rep. Nico Harrison, my God, somewhere down the road, trades Luka Donic, who he apparently is like, who cares? Fat
Insane.
boy, get out of here. And suddenly Luka Doncic is a Laker. I understand having reservations about Luka's defense. I do. And there are questions about top tier like performance and what it requires. Jason Tatum is a really great example of a guy who has not hit that upper echelon of offensive performance that a lot of players above him sit, but you're just not losing anything defensively, and that really means something. However, my God, man, Luka Doncic. And like, here's the thing too. It's been, I think, 8 or 9 years since Kyrie Irving has scored more than 22 points per game or 23 points per game in a playoff run. I understand like Kyrie, Anthony Davis is a strong team, but I would be very surprised if they have the offensive juice to move, playoff round after playoff round. That would surprise me like a bunch. Where do you sit on it at the end of it all?
It honestly still doesn't like feel real, to be honest. I've tried to like think of the rationale of like, oh, how do the Mavs like get out of this? But they didn't even acquire enough assets to get a third guy. Like if they had gotten
quickly. Yeah. What the hell, man? Like the media reporting, oh, they're like they have dreams of Anthony Davis or Kevin Durant. Cool.
Yeah.
What happened to due diligence? If a team says they like Kevin Durant and they have nothing to trade, I like Kevin Durant. I want Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant I'd like as my roommate because he could pay like a massive portion of rent. I have no means to get Kevin Durant in this house. What?
Yeah.
Like everybody, and the same with the Warriors too. It's like they're like, oh, Warriors, Suns talks are heating up. And then it all stops because it's like, well, Kevin Durant does not want to go there. It's like, well, then the talks didn't mean anything, did it? What are we doing, man?
I think as Blue Jays fans, we're just scarred with the word talks. Like it just doesn't mean anything at all.
Yeah, Brandon Ingram very nearly got traded to the Dodgers, it seems.
We always give it like even it's just like even the level of trades, like De'Aaron Fox got traded. I was like, man, it doesn't feel like anything. Jimmy Butler, I'm like, all right, that's cool, I guess. Like obviously the Raptors are a team, so like reacted a lot to like Brandon Ingram, but we're never going to see a player that good at get traded probably again in our lifetime. There's going to be documentaries about this trade and this day and like what the sweet talking Rob Pelinka had to do to get him to trade. Like, don't talk to anybody else. Let's just get this done. Just nice, calm.
It's
calm
just
voice.
So insane that Nico was like, you have to keep it a secret. Like, please. What the hell? Oh God. And yeah, that's it. I'm excited for the documentary.
I think I might need a movie because I need like someone to play Danny Ainge. He's on the phone. He hears, okay, we just need you. We just need you to. We're gonna give you guys a second round pick. We have a 3-team trade on the thing. He closes it. He's like, he turns to his team. We're like, we're just killing this. We're just killing this. And then he's on the news. It's Luka Doncic. Like, absolutely insane. It just like they could have gotten Scotty in 5 picks, and I would have been like, hey, okay, and then traded for Kevin Durant. Like,
you know what? Jesus, man. It's like the De'Aaron Fox trade hardly hit. That would have blew my mind if it didn't come after the Luka trade. But it's like in Breaking Bad, when Walter cooks the 99 percentile meth, and then Jesse is cooking with Badger, and he's like, not good enough. And Badger's like, what the hell, man? And he's like, no, he's throwing away meth. And it's like, this would have given so many people such a great high. It's just worthless now. It's like Wemby, the preeminent young player in the NBA, who maybe will be the best player in the NBA within 2 years, just got his point guard of the future. And everyone's like, who cares? Luka Doncic, maybe he'll finally be able to sell shoes now, man. I don't know. Man.
Yeah, he's in a humongous spot for himself, like as a star. If you told me like a month ago that instead of Cam Johnson being the headliner of the deadline, it would be De'Aaron Fox and Jimmy Butler, I'm like, wow, that's one of the best deadlines we've ever seen. Those are two great players. But it was Luka Doncic. Like Jimmy Butler, I felt nothing. I just kept watching the game.
It didn't move me at all. It's just like okay.
Not even a little bit. I'm like, yeah, Miami got Andrew Wiggins.
And Jimmy Butler is good. Do you remember we went through trade deadlines where like the best player got moved was like Nikola Mirotic. And now it's just crack. Just crack, dude. And the point they make is like, oh, nobody's talking about the Super Bowl. How could you possibly? Jalen Hurts won't throw over the middle. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to get into that. Shannon Ferguson says, I guess Toronto didn't see a room for Davion with IQ and Shed, but I thought he contributed to winning. I do think Davion contributed to winning objectively. Yeah. But the Raptors, I don't think they're trying to win. Mirotic and Gasol, same deadline. Mirotic, did he get traded from the Bulls to the Bucks, or did he get traded from the Bulls to somewhere else to the Bucks? I can't remember.
No, Bulls to the Bucks. I thought they had won the freaking championship when they got Nikola Mirotic. I'm like,
so did Masai.
God, this amazing big. Yeah.
So did Masai, because Masai was like, well, they got Nikola Mirotic. Obviously, we need Mark Gasol. Also, this is like, the rumors around that were that the Raptors were discussing Kyle and JV for Conley and Gasol. There is this weird history between Kyle almost going to the Timberwolves, between Kyle almost going to the Knicks, between Kyle almost getting traded to the Grizzlies, of just like, Masai, do you know who is your point guard? Do you know what's going on here? There's been some interesting stuff. Let's talk about Wiggins. You and I wanted Wiggins badly.
Oh, badly.
Very badly. I think Wiggins is Steph says Temple surviving the trade deadline. That's our labor king, brother. He stood with the teachers union. He was on the picket line. He donated money. That guy is my GOAT. He also, when I wore a turtleneck, because he wears turtlenecks, he was like, nice, So I was like, oh, hell yeah. Oddly enough, turtlenecks are the most oft complimented thing I wear at the arena, which I think is wrong.
Well, I feel like when someone wears a turtleneck, like, oh, this guy like thought about what he wanted to wear today. He tried. You know what I mean?
Actually, Stevie is in chat, and he responded to a tweet yesterday, and it was with a tweet he had where he wasn't going to eat until the Raptors made a trade. I want you to be honest here, Stevie. Did you eat when the Kyle Anderson news was announced? Did you cheat the game, or did you wait until Brandon Ingram? And I want you to be honest, Stevie, because this is important. Because, these are the things we're wondering about. Did you eat when the Kyle Anderson trade was announced? Did you start chomping it down, or did you wait for Kyle Anderson? Okay, Andrew Wiggins. I think he's going to be awesome on Miami. I think he fits exactly what they're trying to do.
Yeah, like their defense is going to be great. They added Davion too. They're going to be lineups where you see Davion, Hero, Wiggins, maybe Jaime, maybe Duncan, and Bam, or Killaware. Trey and I, by the way, we told you here first he was going to be good, but their defense is going to be really, really good. And I think in terms of like a situation, like how bad the Jimmy stuff was, like to get Andrew Wiggins and a pick is like higher outcome than I was expecting. Could you have believed if Jimmy Butler got traded for Kevin Durant though? That would have been absolutely insane.
That whole thing made no sense to me. Zero.
Not at all.
I didn't understand it at all. I was like, how could this be the case? Because Kevin Durant is much better than Jimmy Butler, and he is perceived as much better than Jimmy Butler. So naturally, they'd be traded for one. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Nurkic got traded. Does that matter to you? Oh, for Cody Martin and Micic and a 2026. Here's your mistress team. From the Hornets' perspective, how do you feel about Nurkic as your starting center, dude?
All right, they got a 2026 pick. We're cooking. They've done really well. I thought they got like surplus value for Mark. A swap and a clean first is probably a lot for a guy that isn't the greatest on defense. Like, they're trying to tank. Nurkic isn't very good. You get off more salary and a first round pick. I think that's like totally fine. I do think they're entering like a weird window where they've been bad for too long. Where like I could see this summer being where either they get off LaMelo or like LaMelo is ass out, and if he was ever a Raptor, I promise you, I would be in front of Union Station in tears, unconsolable, like those Luka fans. But I think it's a fine trade.
So we have JD Hunt says the people are impressed by any bald man who can wear a turtleneck without looking like a Grady. That's pretty funny. I've never thought about it like that before. We have S. He's arrived. Esfandiar Berhaney. How you doing?
What up, gang? What up? What up?
We were just talking about the Luka trade and how fun that was to experience together.
Crazy.
So sorry you weren't there. How do you feel about
how do I feel about being alone during the Luka trade?
Yeah. Well, you called us shirtless from the podcast studio, and then you banged out a Hall of Fame podcast for The Athletic.
Wow.
Yes, that's true.
I'm doing this because I denied you of your plug yesterday as a joke. let me say, S is on one of the world's most popular basketball podcasts, The Athletic Daily Podcast. He's also.
I don't even know how that happens. You know, it's like doesn't make sense. Anyways,
how you got that job?
Yeah.
Well, tell us the process. How many interviews? How much does it pay? Okay, Davon got traded. Tell us thoughts.
Oh, it's been a long day without you,
my friend.
All right.
Wait. Actually, stop singing. Trey, you got to go. Say goodbye.
I'm gonna couple predictions. I'm gonna say 2 seconds for Christopher Boucher. If he gets traded, I will hop back on and see
Nabil is crying in front of Union Station for 2 seconds, dude.
But it's weird. Like there was a rumor they turned down PJ for Chris. So like there must be something like the Messiah's boiling, Messiah's cooking. But overall,
actually, Michael Grange literally just said that team to watch regarding Boucher and Raptors is Denver. Definitely interest, but making the money work has been tough.
20 seconds ago. I mean, Grange, we reported this on the Pull-Up Trade podcast weeks ago. I mean, come on. Wait, go ahead.
I'm ready to hop back on if that happens and pretend like I've watched tons of Zeke Naji film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm ready to go.
You know he can play the piano.
Okay, we should pick him second overall.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, he speaks Mandarin as well. Okay, Trey, thank you very much for hopping on. We'll see you.
All right.
S. We'll get the wider scope of your thoughts on this since you cover the league at large.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the day so far?
Pretty uneventful, right?
Yeah.
Pretty tame. I mean, I think it's just because most of the like transactional stuff ended up this week, right? We got the Luka trade, the Fox trade, BI, Middleton, all of these guys, Butler, like 6 all-stars moving before the actual trade deadline. And by the way, for the people who are wondering, no, Chris Boucher hasn't actually gotten traded yet. There are a bunch of comments saying that, oh my God, Boucher got traded. Not yet. Nothing is official yet. But there's been so much movement. And so, like, I think because of the movement that we saw before today, there's just nothing to really go off of now. teams are just like, well, what else do we even do? What else do we even try to move? And so you're seeing the smaller trades happen today. Obviously, Davion being one of them. Nurkic just got traded. Like, that's sort of the scope of the types of trades you see today.
So for people who are wondering, by the way, the Raptors will be talking about this at like 3:30 p.m. Like at the end of the trade deadline, the Raptors will have a media availability. And also for people who want the post-trade deadline look, the Hello and Welcome fellows are hosting. They go live in 30 minutes. They'll be talking about it afterwards. If you want my perspective on it and Joe Wolfon's perspective on it, we'll be talking and breaking down the trade deadline on Saturday around noon, I believe. Make sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It helps out the channel. There's about 500 people in here currently. I want to see 500 likes on the video. Let's be greedy. I'll ask you again. I didn't actually like your answer a lot. You saying it's been a long day, and then I cut you off unfairly. Davion went out the door. What do you think this signals about the Raptors' intentions for the rest of the season?
That they are not going to be as good defensively. Because look, man, Davion, for all his warts and like him trying to figure out offensively if he can stick in the league and whatnot, really talented defensive player and elevated the Raptors defense consistently when he was on the floor. That stretch where the Raptors were the number one defense in the league, it was partially because of Davion being able to come in there and just like be a great defender at the point of attack. So it's not a shock to me that they ended up moving Davion. I think given where they're at and them trying to kind of recuperate some of the picks that they gave up for BI, they got another second, in the door when it comes to getting off of Davion. Now, if you look at kind of like the tree trade, I know you tweeted about this, but they basically got 3 seconds for Davon Mitchell at this point, which is good business, if you will. At the same time, what does that signal? It means that like more minutes for Jamal Shed, more opportunity for him, a very, very clear backup role for him to like take and run with. I know you and I have talked about this, but I think I'm excited for that. I'm pretty hyped for Jamal to get more opportunity. He's shown some good stretches here over the last little bit. Obviously has a lot of things that he has to improve at. The 3-point shooting has to become more considerate and concise, more consistent as a defender. I guess he could be more considerate too.
Sure.
And that's where I kind of land on the Mitchell trade. It's like more opportunity for Shed. They were likely going to do this, shed some salary, no pun intended. And we'll see what happens with PJ Tucker here, man. PJ Tucker back, maybe.
I don't think
so either.
Lacing up the kicks, if I'm being honest with you.
You're probably right.
I do want to ask you, because I got the perspective of Trey and Lewis on this. When you think of the Raptors being a team, not this year, like Grady and Jacoby will play lots of minutes this year, but next year, presumably Brandon has a new contract. I don't know what decisions they could make during the summer, but let's say things stay relatively static. They have Jakob, Scotty, Ingram, RJ, Quickly, Grady, Jacoby. That whole situation, maybe even Chris on an extension, something like that.
Yep.
What do you make of the Raptors being a team where it's more of an earn it situation next year? Do you think that's good? Earn the minutes for guys like Grady and Jacoby. Do you think that's healthy? Do you like how that looks? Or do you want there to be more leeway for kind of like play mistake basketball?
I think it's okay. I think it's fine, actually. If anything, I think that's a good way to work about it. Like, if you talk to Davion and Jamal Shed throughout the year, they kind of appreciated the grind ball approach whenever they would play against each other.
Talked about that a lot at camp.
They did. And like even a couple of days ago when I was at the game, I think they talked to Jamal when he had that great game, and he was like, man, Davion has been such a great professional. It's good to like go to work with him because like grinding with him is the coolest part about this and like competing. And so I actually don't mind competition being a part of it. For all intents and purposes, like BI has been known to be a great teammate. Like I think a lot of guys are like, think of him as a beloved guy anytime they play with him. So he's going to come in and probably provide a serious level of energy too. He's also a guy who's like had some playoff experience, has played in some big games. And so that comes with its own cachet of, okay, maybe we should kind of listen to this guy to see what kind of perspective he has. I'm curious to see, how vocal of a dude BI is, because it does feel like he might be like a chill and laid back dude, and what that does for the dynamic of the team. But in terms of grinding for minutes and moments, I think that's what you need to put pressure on young guys like Grady and Jacoby to like, hey man, your time to shine, because they've shown potential, especially Grady. Like there's clearly a use for a guy like Grady Dick on this roster, but now it's like you got to defend at a high level. You got to be consistent every night. You got to be making your shots. And so that adds a level of pressure that isn't make or break, but it's just, hey, if you want to be a guy on this team, show it.
Where do you sit on this draft class right now? Because a lot of 2024, the Raptors draft class.
Yeah.
We have Mike Vick who says you two talk pure garbage.
Thank you, Mike.
What do you think? What do you think about the 2024 class currently? Jamal Shed, I think there's a vast array of opinions on him. Probably
you're talking about like from the Raptors,
from the Raptors perspective. Looking at it now, Mobo, Shed, Walter, I guess Shamshay. Where do you sit on that right now?
Not having a lotto pick, they did a pretty good job. And like I think part of that is I've seen enough from Jacoby, not enough, but I've seen bits from Jacoby where you're like, okay, this guy clearly has a level of confidence, has things that he can get to in terms of like drawing fouls. And Darko talked about his relentlessness and how much he loves his aggression. I think we've talked about the defensive aspect and how he can buy in on the end using his length and athleticism to like get into passing lanes. Like that's part of what you can see in Jacoby Walter's potential. So I don't know what his ceiling is, but getting him where they got him in the draft feels like a win at this point. And then you talk about Mobo, Shed, Shamshay, Battle, which is just a bunch of like swings. And I think from watching the 905, these guys like are really putting in tons of work, especially Battle and Mobo, who are like grinding. Shamshay obviously is a big surprise, and we'll see how he turns out over the next couple of years. I think there's still some steps he has to take to become like a rotation player for the Raptors. But Battle has like one skill that's already at a very, very high level, which is shooting the ball. Now he's just trying to put together everything else, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Told me he's trying to do Pilates to get hip strength and hip mobility. So that's what he wants to do. And then Mobo, it's like putting together the offensive side of the ball and figuring out how you can be an impactful offensive player while being a really, really talented defensive player. So like these guys have figured out their niches already as rookies. And I think it's just about figuring out how much more they can do, which is with like, that's a win for a team that didn't have a lottery pick and picked 3 guys in the second round, so
can I put you in a tough spot?
Sure.
Would that be okay? I'm going to list players and you tell me if you foresee them being in a high level playoff rotation.
Okay, sure.
Because as much as the Raptors have gotten guys in, there's been a lot of turnover and there's potential. But the rubber will meet the road on a couple of them at the very least. Not everyone is going to pan out on this Raptors team. But right now we have names and excitement.
Yeah.
Brandon Ingram, high level playoff rotation.
Yes. Yeah.
Scotty.
Yeah. Jakob. Yep.
IQ.
Yes. Yeah.
RJ.
So wait, but sorry, actually I wanted to ask this clarifying question. High level playoff rotation, are we talking like final mold of this team or like the next time this team is in the playoffs?
Like, just do you think IQ could
be in a high level play?
Let's say it's the Knicks again. The Knicks are playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. Is IQ factoring in majorly?
Majorly is probably a tough word, but I think given their lack of depth, he would have played. Yes. Yeah. I would lock that in. Yeah.
RJ.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the starting 5.
I would lock in the starting 5 as guys who could do it. Yeah.
Okay. That's good news. Grady. Do you see it?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Jacoby. Do you see it?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Shed. Do you see it?
No.
Mobo. Do you see it?
If I had to pick gun to my head right now, I would say no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember there was an all-star prediction.
I know. But like
it's gone differently.
It's so weird to like pick that now because I mean Shed has had some moments here where you're like, man, he really like rises to the moment in certain situations, and like you give him 10 minutes and he'll just like have a like this energizer type of mentality when he comes off the bench. So it's like you could see a guy like that impacting the playoff game. I think the most important and like maybe the interesting one you mentioned was Quickly, because like Quick is a guy who I think kind of like Fred is going to struggle to get his shot off in the playoffs, and especially against defenses that key in on him. You're thinking like, how is he going to get to easy and functional offense? Which is why maybe this BI trade does work out, because it allows Quickly to be off the ball more and allows him to kind of fill space and filter through and, you know, kind of be in the crevices of the offense outside. I kind of like it from that perspective.
He's not physical like Fred, though.
Yeah, he's not. No. Yeah, that's true. And obviously, like, he's not the major plus on defense that Fred was for a pretty consistent point of his career, too. So, yeah.
It's the interesting thing is like 3 players went out, Fred, OG, Pascal, all 3 objectively fit into starting lineups on high caliber teams. We still don't know that about much of the Raptors lineup. Not even Jakob Poeltl has been in a starting lineup on a high caliber team.
It's true. Yeah.
In his career. Scotty is without a doubt, he's an all-star level player. We need to see this next season from Brandon counts. 49 and 33. I think the Pelicans were last year.
Brandon Ingram, dog. I'm
crazy.
Yo, can you imagine like a month ago, the Raptors are 1-16 in their last 17 games, you know, staring down the barrel of a bottom 3 record. And I were to tell you in that last month, like they're going to trade for Brandon Ingram in a month, buddy. Like, get ready. How would you have reacted to that? Oh my God. That's just
like Shannon Sharp drinking Mountain Dew for the first time. Oh boy. Yeah. I like, how are you supposed to respond to these things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is so much of what this is guesswork around these Raptors. And you know, they've designed it in this way too, because they traded Davion, because they traded for Brandon, because Bruce is gone, Kelly's gone. Yeah. They want to lose minutes. And I'm sure they would be very happy to trade Boucher for something in the form of draft capital or a player, a young guy that they find interesting. But probably that they want to lose minutes. Yeah. This Raptors team coming into next season, I think could be one of the most interesting rosters we've been able to talk about for like years and years.
Yeah.
Because everything will be up in the air. I have no idea what's going on. DeAndre Hunter
there was a trade. Yes. The Hawks have traded DeAndre Hunter to the Cavs for Karis LeVert, George Niang, 3 second-round picks, and 2 swaps. I'm assuming that means 2 first-round pick swaps when he says that. But okay, there you go.
Okay.
Hunter's having a good season, you know?
He's going to be worse offensively, I think, than the duo of Karis LeVert and George Niang. However, he is going to be bigger than LeVert. He's going to play better defense than LeVert, and he's going to give them a bit more size.
Yeah.
However, LeVert did figure out the offense for what it's worth. LeVert was really sharp.
Yeah.
Towards the end of that.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. Like they went on a stretch, the Cavs did, where they missed Dean Wade, and it was like, whoa, they're not as big as they were before. It's like Dean Wade is like a solid 6'10", 6'11", you know, kind of sharpshooter type. But yeah, they need that size on the wings, and Hunter does that. Yeah.
He's shooting the ball well this year.
Yeah,
he gives you like, you know, a post up every once in a while. You know, the odd pick and roll possession. He'll come off of pin downs and curls and stuff like that. He'll get into the lane and make stuff happen. He's not going to give you passing juice. LeVert is actually a very talented passer, especially relative to roll. Man, that series against the Raptors.
I was going to say, you remember that series? Yeah.
Yeah, man. Very special playmaking series from LeVert.
Yeah.
But Hunter's not going to do that. But Hunter, I think the Cavs get better with this trade. I don't think this is what they needed.
I like it for them. I wish they. I bet it was probably too much, but I really wish they went for Cam Johnson because that would have really tied things together for them in a real way. Yeah, I know you're not a huge Cameron man, you know.
I think that I would rather have Hunter than Cam Johnson on the Cavs. That might sound crazy, but I think the defense and size is pretty important to me.
Mhm.
Also, Hunter, 2 more years at 23 and 24 million.
Yep.
That's pretty friendly. Like, I think he
Yep.
fits the Cavs,
Mhm.
and it makes sense. But it is a decent amount of it's a decent amount of stuff to give up, I guess. He's a 4th overall pick.
He is. Yeah, Virginia man. I wonder what those swaps are. I think that's probably the thing I'm curious about. It's like what's the pick capital they gave up for this? But I don't know. We'll see. That's
What?
interesting trade. There's a parallel multiverse world of this where DeAndre Hunter is a Toronto Raptor. You know,
Trey and I talked about that this summer.
Yeah.
When it is kind of funny. We were talking about guys who could potentially be had.
Mhm.
We're like, these guys probably they're going to leave their teams. It was like Cam Johnson, Andrew Wiggins, DeAndre Hunter. We didn't talk about Ingram, but maybe we should have. Oh man, that's really
you
interesting.
remember when I asked you guys that question? And did I mention Ingram in that? Where I was like, hey, would you trade for any of these stars? Did I even mention BI in that scenario?
I don't think so. He wasn't much of a consideration. I mean, the Pels were coming off of 49 and 33. Zion was supposed to be healthier because that's what the Pels have been waiting on, right? Like Trey Murphy is a stud, like big time. He's giving you like 22 and 4, 22 and 5 this year.
Yeah.
He's efficient. He's dynamite creating. He's there. CJ is perfectly passable. They don't really have a big situation. Like Yves Missy is doing his thing, but they don't really have a great big situation.
Yep.
Nance, I guess, leaves as well. But the Pelicans should have been winning games. They just weren't. They were do you remember when they were the first seed in the Western Conference?
Yeah.
And then they lost like 13 of 15 games.
Yeah.
It
was a
just
really
like,
fun time. Zion was awesome during that stretch, man.
Yep.
We kind of talked about it off air a little bit, but I think like this Pels rebuild and the way they went about it, I don't think it was a product of like missing on too many things. Me and Kai, we were debating this in the chat a little bit. I'm not sure if you saw it, but I don't think it was them failing to build around BI and Zion, more so that like those guys, bad luck. Yeah, those guys couldn't stay healthy enough for them to do that. And you nailed Trey as a pick. You nailed Herb Jones as a pick. Those guys are like really, really good. You were missing a center. I think ultimately that was the big issue, but they had Valanciunas for a little bit. They had Adams. They had Adams for a little bit. And that like, I don't know, man. I think they tried. It was just your stars eventually have to do the work for you to get you to that next level.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think it was a product of like missing or like not building well against over, you know what I mean? Ingram
this is the
Zion.
thing. I think, and you go across all of you could sweep everything I've said since I started covering basketball. I'm a very pro player, podcaster, writer, journalist, whatever. There is an emerging infantilization of players that comes along with the standum. Like that is a real thing that's emerging. When a player is like good as hell and there's a bunch of good as hell players, they have to make it work.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the front office is doing, like you just have to survive as a player and ball out. And a lot of times like we're like, well, we explain everything away. And sometimes players just need to be better. And a locker room being like in a tough position is like players.
Yeah.
And being able to like, I've been talking to coaches about this over the past like however many months, is like, who polices the locker room? Does a coach? A coach does not police the locker room.
Nah.
A coach does not go in there and tell.
Maybe assistants, maybe like trainers, you know, maybe.
But those guys are not going into a locker room full of vast multimillionaires and being like, no. The coach decides who plays, yes. But the players, you know, believe like they police themselves. These are the peers.
Mhm.
And the coach is not viewed as like this guy who swings the mallet or like, makes judgments. I don't think that's a real thing. There just has to be stuff that works. And also, like, the DeJounte Murray trade was a disaster for the Pelicans.
Yes.
Total disaster.
Yeah.
Like, not only are they giving up picks,
Dyson, man.
but
Yeah.
Dyson popped the hell off. Somebody in chat wrote that Dyson said there's bad juju in New Orleans. Is that a good signal for what happens in Toronto with Brandon Ingram? I certainly hope so.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I'm more that I'm looking into BI, and I don't know how much. I'm sure you guys talked about Brandon a lot on this so far.
Yeah.
The more that I'm looking into it, the more so he's like not a guy who gets to the rim. And I posted this a while ago, but like 20th percentile amongst wings at getting to the rim over the last 5 seasons. So a very, very large sample there. 5%, 5th percentile at taking threes amongst wings. Again, mostly through this 5 season. 3 out of his 5 seasons, it's been 5th percentile. 2 of those seasons, it's been like 20th, 33rd percentile. So still not very good at taking threes. Makes them at a decent level. Like when he takes them, he's not a bad shooter, but doesn't take a ton of threes. But he's 100th percentile mid-range shooter. Lives in that area. And I'm curious to see how that works, because you have the RJ barrels his way to the basket, incredible at getting to the rim. Cool. You have rim gravity there. You hope that Scotty can eventually like grease the wheels and learn that like living in the paint is the way that he wants to do things versus, we talked about this last night, but like adapting. I am trying so hard to like this trade. Yes, Irv Blitzer. I really am. I'm an optimist. I'm trying to find ways to be optimistic. How does that work functionally? You talked about next season, but like this team now has to be pretty decent next year, pretty good play-in/playoff range. How do you complete that while also trying to complete the sort of puzzle piece it is to fix and add BI into this,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
so Enzo has a good question. Quote, do you think it's that he can't get to the rim, or he just has preferred not to? I'm sure his game will change. He'll become even more efficient in Darko's system, end quote. So there's an interesting thing here that Brandon is pretty high percentile in getting his own shots at the rim.
Mm-hmm.
He's responsible for his own looks at the rim.
Yeah.
Brandon does not let anyone do airplane spoon to him. Nobody will feed Brandon his food.
Mm-hmm.
He will get it himself. Do not ever condescend to give Brandon his food. Give him the ball and let him score.
Yeah.
The hope is, since Brandon is, a pretty talented finisher, that he will let the Raptors feed him sometimes instead of doing everything by his lonesome. There's obviously room for Brandon to you just watch his game. You watch him turn down lane for a jumper over and over and over again. It does happen. But also, this is a guy who doesn't cut. This is a guy who isn't used in a lot of roles where he would be catching on the move to be able to get downhill. This is a guy who stops short. My God, man, this is a guy who just does not want to get to the rim that often. Yeah. And it's the Raptors' job, Darko's job, to change that. Mm-hmm. This is why I tweeted out, this is a huge bet on Darko to some degree, because Brandon Ingram is 9 years into his career. This isn't RJ at 23 coming over from the Knicks. This is Brandon Ingram has made an all-star.
Yeah, we've seen like that. That's actually, this is part of why like Darko can change him talk is like, I'm curious to see what you think about this, but changing a player when he's 27 years old and as deep into his career as BI is no easy thing to do. And so you're looking at like incremental changes to try and move the needle for BI in the positive direction. It's like, he had, I think I saw the stat yesterday. Let me see if I still have it out. Yes, I do. So last year he had 29 possessions as a cutter, right?
Yeah.
According to Synergy, which is not a lot. It's like, let's see, it's 6%, 6th percentile in terms of like players at his position. And he was excellent. 1.5 points per possession, just sick as a cutter, but just never was a cutter.
Yes.
Part of that, by the way, Brad Farndon says like he never played with a true point guard. Yeah, true. but it's also like
He won't
wasn't-
be in Toronto. I'll say,
Yeah.
I'll say that very aggressively.
Yeah, he doesn't have one now, and I think also some of it is like willingness to cut, willingness to move off of the ball, willingness to do that type of stuff. I'm curious. Maybe he's like, I'm willing to change now because I'm in a new environment. But at the same time, we have a large sample of that not being the case necessarily.
Yeah. Coco says something good here, which speaks to the overall, like, players determine things in the NBA. Quote, you can only facilitate or encourage the change that a person wants to make for themselves. That's correct.
That's true. Yeah.
Brandon has to want that. Here's some fun second spectrum stats for everybody.
Yeah.
So the Raptors as a team rank 4th in average touch time at 2.824 seconds. 0.5 offense. Ball moves quick. Players move. Ball keeps moving. Move it, move it, move it.
Yep.
Ingram is averaging just a shred below 4. He is 8th highest among all forwards.
Yep.
Ingram has taken 91 shots after 10 or more dribbles since the start of last season. The Raptors as a team have taken 146.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
a stat. That is quite the stat. Yeah.
Edgar C. also says Brandon Ingram adjusted pretty well to Zion joining the Pels. No, I will go, and again, I'm optimistic for this Brandon Ingram thing. I think that Zion adjusted to Brandon Ingram.
Yeah.
Zion is the easiest. Everyone can fit next to Zion.
Mm-hmm.
Zion doesn't hold on to the ball too long. Zion moves with the ball without it. He catches on the move. He comes off blade actions. He cuts 45 baseline corner crashes, all kinds of stuff, and he finishes everything at the rim.
Mm-hmm.
And Zion is actually like an above average passer considering all of his other talents. So is Brandon, but I don't think that Brandon like changed. Well, again, we can look at the stats.
Yeah.
Brandon didn't change the game at all when Zion came.
He really didn't.
They just played together. And the idea is that, you know, Brandon and Scotty can to some degree just play together, but there's some change that needs to come there as well. The effective field goal percentage on Ingram's 91 shots after 10 or more dribbles, which is insane, is 37.4%. So that's accounting for the efficiency of 3-pointers as well.
Yeah.
That's effective field goal percentage. It's interesting, man. It's late to class, says Big Pole, getting Rick from Sun Life as a guest. What is your name in the
It's Rick.
the gym? No, but what's your name in the gym?
The gym, I'm just dude pushing a freaking depends which one
weight,
you see.
man.
yeah. I'm doing the freaking what's this called again? The row machine. Yeah, I'm dude that does the row machine. That's what they call me in that fitness commercial. It's a funny life we live in.
Brandon's talented though. He's immediately their most talented offensive player.
Yeah, and like getting to a bucket is a skill, and like tough shot making is a skill, and I imagine there will be a lot of tough shots that Brandon Ingram will have to take.
My hope is that all of the sudden Brandon Ingram finds himself taking easy shots. He also is, we haven't really talked about this, one of my favorite things where a guy shoots better above the break than he does from the corners.
Yeah,
Brandon has a giant diet of above the break 3-point shooting, which means that his 3-point percentage is a little lower than maybe people expected, but it means it's more valuable. That means more guys can move to the corner. It means he can occupy space above the break.
Yeah.
Like, again, here's the thing. The Raptors have been winning lately, and that has been a tremendous cosign of Scotty's impact as a defender, as a rebounder, and Scotty's done a really great job of limiting turnovers lately. But Scotty is shooting 40% from the field during this stretch. He's shooting like 23% from 3. On the season, Scotty has taken the extra chunk of usage percentage from last season, and it's resulted in his points per game is at 19.9, the exact same as last year. His true shooting percentage is 52%.
Wait,
he's averaging like 0.3 or 0.4 more assists per game.
Yeah,
but like half a turnover more per game. The numbers haven't gone up, and progression isn't linear. There are steps Scotty's taking in his game that are good, but Brandon will be there.
Should help. Yeah,
and Brandon will make those numbers go up. And I suspect and hope that Scotty will make Brandon's numbers go up as well. That's my hope.
Yeah, I mean, like to your point last night about Pascal, because we were kind of arguing that one, but like Scotty objectively played better when Pascal was there and got to way more easy shots when Pascal was there. So you hope that like that gravity can also apply to BI. And so I think Andre asked about my hope is what happened to RJ will happen to BI. And so I was lower on the RJ side of the acquisition last year when we had the same conversation. And I think RJ has proven me wrong. I wasn't out here calling him a toxic asset like most people, but I was kind of questioning like what RJ could be in his career. Clearly he has proven me wrong, and I'm now a staunch RJ fan. Like I really enjoy his game and what he's been able to do with it, especially in Toronto. You hope that the exact same thing happens with Brandon here in Toronto, where he just kind of like buys in to playing this specific type of style, especially RJ last year when the Raptors were fully healthy. He was taking advantage off of cuts. He was moving without the ball more often. He said nothing has changed, but things had changed. And it was clear that like his approach was, okay, I'm going to try to get as much easy looks as I possibly can off of the ball. If that's something that happens to BI, great. Like that's a win in all categories for the Raptors.
So Enzo says, hey boys, will Masai be able to comment on the trade if it isn't officially announced before the presser? He should be able to, because as far as my understanding, the paperwork has to be done by 3 p.m. Like this has been a thing in years past where the paperwork didn't, like this was the Lowry trade that didn't happen because Pat Riley fell asleep in a sunbeam at his old age, right? They weren't able to make moves. I think at 3:30 when, everybody's talking at OVO Center, I presume they'll be able to talk about the Ingram thing. It's at 3:30. That's in an hour and a half. Somebody asked earlier if I'd be there. No, I will not be there. If you can guess from my voice, I'm under the weather. I think it would be probably irresponsible to show up there like, hey guys, what's going on, bro? There's been enough people sick on the Raptors this year. I should just sit at home in my basement.
I thought you lost your voice because you were singing to white music so much.
No, dude. I didn't sing to the white music. I sang a mi maniera, bro. Que servirá. Deja la viva.
Don't stress yourself.
I was singing a mi maniera very loud, dude. What a song. It's a Spanish cover of My Way by Frank Sinatra. It's sang by the Gypsy Kings. I understand the first name in that first word in that name is considered not a great word now. So I don't know if I should have said that. That's their name. If anybody wants to listen to good music,
their name. Yeah,
that's their name. It's 2:01 p.m. I am under the weather. I've been talking for hours.
I can jump in for you, brother.
Well, I'm saying hello and welcome. They just went live. There's a bunch of people in here. They're under the Nation Network. We're all buddies and pals if you guys want to hop over there. But also, Blake and Matt are now live for Sportsnet for their trade deadline special. S's pals over at The Athletic are still ongoing, I'm pretty sure.
We're cooking. Yeah.
What time did you go on The Athletic stream?
I started with my guy Andrew Schlecht at 7:30 in the morning.
That's disgusting. That's so gross, dude.
And I actually went straight 7:30 till 12:45. Just had a nice little breakfast right before I jumped on here, and then cooking, man.
How long did you talk on The Athletic one?
You can space yourself out. People are jumping in and out and stuff like that. We had to carry a little bit for the morning, but yeah, we were cooking. Cooking, man.
Well, everybody, for the 430 people here currently, we've lost some after I signaled that we'd be ending. I don't have the juice to end.
It's all good.
We're all here, Will and Alex and Jerome and all them will take us home.
Yes, sir.
Go over there, enjoy their podcast. Like the video before you get out of here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Trevon for hopping on with me. Thank you for Lewis for hopping on with me. Thank you to S for hopping on with me. Anything you want to say before we get out of here, S?
No, look, as always, just support Raptors Republic. We do a lot of great work here. Samson does some great work here. We got a lot of great people on here doing great podcasts, videos, etc. I will be doing recaps as well. So tap in for the nightly recaps that you guys might be interested in. Not sure, whatever. If you guys are interested in it, tap in. People love them. I don't know if the 453 people here love them. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you guys for
There was that person who said we talk absolute shit.
We're shit. We're garbage. But no, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for supporting throughout the year. It's going to be an interesting next couple of months. Will BI play?
And
Will the draft happen?
A $4 super sticker from Andre Osipov. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. And then from Shannon Ferguson says, thank you, Lewis, for talking about RJ impacts, even though I think you stopped short. RJ can also play make for BI. That's a good point, too. There's a lot of stuff there. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, presumably you got into it right now. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you. Goodbye.
Bye.